person. If you've been coming during Lent, and I salute you if you have, every sermon I preached used the lens of another story to get to evil. T.S. Eliot, Joseph Conrad, Nathaniel Hawthorne, Graham Greene, today Milan Kundera, every one of them seized a story that didn't happen to point us back to reality with a fresh eye and new ear. I could have used Shakespeare, Herman Melville, Blessed Chinua Achebe, may he rest in peace, Isabel Allende, because every story, every imagined story is about good and evil, life and death, hope and despair. We go away from reality and come back and see them with a new pair of eyes, here with a new pair of ears. Imaginary stories are the lenses through which we look at life. Harry Potter, Luke Skywalker, Shug Avery, Hamlet at Elsinore, they don't really exist, but they teach our minds to see the world anew. They take us away from this reality so we can come back to it anew. In fact, stories not only help us see the world differently, they sometimes actually change the world. So here are all these disciples wondering what happened. We don't know what they said. We have no idea of knowing exactly what happened. But in a period of 1 or 2 centuries, that story so changed them that they began to change the world itself. Stories are not just imaginary, they are transformative. They can change your life, they can change communities, they can actually change the world, for good or for evil. As I mentioned in the e-worship service this morning, Abraham Lincoln greeted Harriet Beecher Stowe during the Civil War by looking down. He was very tall, remember, and she was quite short. He said, "So you're the little woman who started the great big war." She didn't start it, but her book, Uncle Tom's Cabin, galvanized the abolitionist movement that had not been coherent before and gave it more energy, pushed the nation closer to that precipice. There's no question that her story changed more minds than all the newspapers that had published anything about slavery. A story can change the way you see the world and change you and then change the world. That's what we're about, learning, growing, and changing. In a less optimistic turn, at least for me, and I'm confessing my own point of view here, of course, there are a number of economic voices out there who confess that their idea of the best economy comes from Ayn Rand, not from Milton Friedman, not from Adam Smith, but from novels written by a novelist. Those books changed the way they saw the world, and they're now changing the world. Now we can go back to our first story, Seymour. Buoyed by his love, Seymour realizes the alien plant must die, or it will kill them all. In the original movie and in the musical, the first versions, the plant wins, and they take over the world. They filmed that ending for the movie you may have seen, but they took it to focus groups. Now, the producer of the movie, the director, in fact, Frank Oz, you know who Frank Oz is? Muppet Master. He discovered something, and this is what he says. In a stage play, you kill the leads, but they can come out for a bow and you know they're not really dead. In a movie, they don't come back for a bow. They feel dead. People do not want to see hope die. In the movie then, Seymour, buried in rubble because the plant has collapsed the flower shop on top of him, sticks an hand out from the rubble, grabs an electrical cord, and electrocutes the beast. Love conquers all. That's our favorite story. Odysseus took 10 years to go home, fled the arms of a goddess because he loved Penelope. She held out for 20 years because she loved him. He went to find his son Telemachus, who was looking for him. He loved Ithaca. Love drove the Odyssey along. Seymour braves death itself to save Audrey and the world. And Jesus conquers death because he loved us all. It's the same story. They're all of them impossible. But we love them because there's something even more impossible than that. Our individual lives really are passing and ephemeral. They won't last. We all have an expiration date. We just don't know what it is. And we hope that the life we have is larger than the life we lose. That the love we feel will endure even after we are no longer there to feel it. We want to think that life itself endures, that love itself continues, even if we do not. Strip away all the catechisms, all the dogmas, all the rituals, all the rules and regulations, and it comes down to just this. Life matters. My life matters, and what I love matters as much as my life. I have no proof that it's so. No one does. But we cannot live and love and believe that it isn't worth something more. That's more impossible than jumping up out of the grave. That's more impossible than wizards. That's more impossible than the Cyclops. That we should live and love and believe it means nothing. We cannot live and love and also think it is without value. That's the leap of faith every human being takes every day he or she gets up. Stories, fabulous as they are more believable than the idea that life is pointless. My favorite thinker, William James, put it this way: I do not know what the sweat and blood and tragedy of this life mean, if they mean anything short of this. If this life be not a real fight, it is no better than a game of private theatricals from which one may withdraw at will. But it feels like a real fight. In the Gospel of Mark, 3 women come to the tomb on Sunday morning. They've come to complete the ritual burial practices of Judaism. You see, in Judaism, to attend to the dead is the ultimate mitzvah because the dead cannot repay the favor. It's an act of pure love, just as giving one's life is. When I was in Brooklyn 2 weeks ago, I was there to conduct a ceremony, a wedding, a legal wedding for 2 women. It was wonderful. I enjoyed it. But I went to church. My successor said, "Do come." But I didn't want to be noticed, so I lurked in the back of the church. I still know where the secret passageways are. And I was largely unnoticed. It helps to get older. But then someone tapped me on the shoulder. I turned around and did not recognize who I was looking at. There were 3 women. I mentioned the 3 women for a reason. 3 women, 2 young women and their mother, and they saw me and wanted me to know how much I had meant to them, and I did not remember them. Then they explained, we only came at Christmas and other holidays, but we so loved what you had to give and what you said. Boy, did that feel great. 8 years later, and they remembered. But the kicker was one of the young women said, "I read your blog too. I only have 52 followers on a good day." That felt like 1,000,000 hits. Because how many of us have not felt our lives were not worth what they should be, that we weren't a success, that we hadn't accomplished enough, that we hadn't made enough of a difference? And that's a tomb all by itself, isn't it? When we judge that our lives have not really lived up to what they were supposed to be. We're all filled with great potential, and I've been failing mine. Who has not measured him or herself against whether you have enough money or more power or should have done more? They weigh upon our hearts like stones. We put ourselves in prisons of expectations we cannot possibly escape, and then someone will come up right behind you, tap you on the shoulder, and roll that stone of self-imprisoned expectation away and say, "Yes, you matter." Remember when I talked about sewing up the tears in life? This is what I mean. When you roll away the stone of someone else's self-doubt and misery. Tell them, you've made a difference in my life. That's sewing up the fabric. My vision of liberal religion begins and ends with the messiahship of all believers. Everyone is a Messiah. Every one of us, whether you know it or not, whether you believe it or not, because we all have this saving power that can roll away someone's stone, that can mend a broken heart, that can free an imprisoned mind. Any one of us has and will and can again release someone from the tombs of their own heart. For big C Christians, the whole idea of Jesus saving us and us going to heaven, that's really important, but I'm a small case Christian. I don't know, and I honestly don't care whether Jesus died for my sins. I'm pretty much sure that if Jesus did, he'd forgive me if I forgot that from time to time. But for me, Easter is the story that tells me when 3 women come to my door, they can roll away the stone of my heart. Easter is the story that says I can love so much that it's worth crossing a continent, sailing past Cyclops and Laestrygonians. Easter is the story that lets me cheer when the nebbish gets the girl. Easter is the story that tells me I can believe that my life matters. Heaven can wait, friends, just like the movie says. On this earth, though, we are all Christ's messiahs and saviors, Seymours out there to save the world for love. There may be much more to Easter than this, but to this simple follower of Jesus, this is enough. Happy Easter. And by the way, we do this every 7 days. Come on back now. And let us all say, amen. Let's rise up and live with our voices, with our one of my favorite hymns, and the only time I do it during the year is right now. O day of light and gladness. And as you get up, you should remember when you're done to sit down and listen to the Postlude. It's the biggest, fattest, hairiest Postlude you're ever going to hear. I'm sorry, I had to tell them. Go out in joy, be led back in peace. The mountains and the hills shall burst into song, and the trees of the field will clap their hands. If the earth can be so joyous, so must you, because this day and every day is a day which the Lord has made. Rejoice in it and be glad. Amen.